Tonight, a KSFY exclusive. The Minneapolis office of the FBI tells us the terror group ISIS is actively recruiting fighters from the Twin Cities area. Just today, 2 young men in Minnesota were charged with conspiracy to support the Islamic State. The Twin Cities, it's fertile ground. 4 years ago, I brought you the story of how another terror group, Al-Shabaab, was convincing young Muslim men to go overseas and join that group. The FBI tells us ISIS is now a primary threat to homeland security. Watch the right side of your screen.
Car bomb.
This video is from Iraq. One person in one car packed with explosives. That one action is enough to kill and injure hundreds of people. It's one of the biggest fears for counterterrorism agents at the Minneapolis office of the FBI.
A priority threat for the FBI and for the United States.
FBI agent E.K. Wilson was granted clearance to speak with KSFY about the agency's growing concern over the terror group ISIS, which popped up on the U.S. government's radar in 2006 in Iraq as an insurgency group fighting U.S. forces. Last year, the group entered the civil war in Syria, and 5 months ago, ISIS declared its intention to overthrow all Western governments, including the United States.
You know, our priority, obviously, is the identification of any threat to the U.S. homeland or U.S. interests.
Wilson tells me ISIS is a well-financed, well-organized group on a large scale. While most of their activities involve acts of brutal violence overseas, kidnapping, rape, murder, including the kidnappings and videotape beheadings of American citizens, ISIS's influence is beginning to creep into the United States, thanks to something very specific but also very hard to track: social media.
There's a ton of material available on the internet. There's a lot of propaganda. ISIS has utilized social media and the internet to inspire young people.
The social media recruitment is working. The FBI knows of at least 100 Americans who have traveled overseas to fight for ISIS. 2 months ago, Douglas McCain, a former Minneapolis resident, was killed in Syria in an ISIS battle. Killed in that same battle, Abdraman Muhammad, a father of 9 from Minneapolis, who also traveled to Syria on his own to fight for ISIS. This follows years of recruitment by the terror group Al-Shabaab, which convinced 25 young men from the Twin Cities to join that organization.
Their eagerness to recruit and recruit foreign fighters, which makes U.S. individuals vulnerable to recruitment.
And makes the U.S. increasingly vulnerable to an attack here at home. In August, a Twitter account connected with ISIS showed pictures of the White House and a Chicago office building with the message, "We are in your state, we are in your cities, we are in your streets." Given the Twin Cities history as a location of terror recruitment, FBI agent E.K. Wilson tells me counterterrorism continues to be the #1 concern of the Minneapolis FBI office.
Anybody, anywhere in the country, could be a potential target as an American, as a U.S. citizen.
Which means the threat spreads beyond the Twin Cities, to other areas of Minnesota, to Iowa, and to South Dakota. And if you think we're immune in Sioux Falls because we are in a relatively safe area, listen to Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin.
Well, Sioux Falls feel very fortunate that Timothy McVeigh didn't come there. And as you have seen from our memorial service today, there was tremendous suffering, tremendous loss, a tremendous tragedy.
In May of 2011, we told you how Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh had the Sioux Falls Federal Courthouse on his final list of bombing targets in April of 1995, before deciding on the Oklahoma City Federal Building. One person with one bomb did all this. And the FBI worries ISIS will do the same thing here, if not something else. The terror message is being spread and received in Minneapolis.
So the FBI is concerned about ISIS in a larger sense. Brian, why the specific concern about Sioux Falls?
Let's talk about that for a second. The FBI will tell you that there's no chatter, there's nothing that says a specific threat or anything imminent for the Sioux Falls area. But what the FBI is saying is that don't get lulled into a false sense of security. It is not out of the realm of reason that something could happen here. We expect terror attacks to happen in larger cities where there are larger populations. But the FBI will tell you, imagine if something catastrophic happened in a smaller city where it wasn't expected.
Right.
And that's where Sioux Falls comes onto their radar.
Very interesting.